Keir Starmer is not having a very good start to his time as Prime Minister. I say start to his time as Prime Minister, but actually in this video, I'm going to argue that we might be a little bit closer towards the end of his time as Prime Minister. Now, Keir's approval ratings, well, they've dropped like a lead balloon, and we know why. I know why, and you know why. He promised pensioners that he wouldn't betray them, but it was literally the first thing that he did. And then he promised farmers that he wouldn't betray them, but that was the second thing that he did. They promised that the energy prices would come down, but they've gone up, and so on, and so on, and so on. But even with all of these factors, I still believed, until very recently, that Keir Starmer and his cabinet would be able to muddle along through a declining Britain till 2029 and then ultimately lose the general election, probably to the Reform Party. You see, no matter how much you or I or pensioners or farmers may dislike Keir Starmer, it actually doesn't matter. It's not enough to oust him as PM. What you really need to see are cracks forming within the Labour base. You see, you and I, we're not predisposed to vote for the Labour Party anyway. But when you see those cracks forming in the Labour base and the Labour supporters, cheerleaders, MPs and councillors, well, that is far more significant. And those are exactly the kinds of cracks that I think we are now beginning to see. Remember just a few days ago, the language that Keir Starmer used to describe people who wanted a national inquiry.
Calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
That's right, he referred to it all as far-right poison. But a recent poll presents a big problem for Keir Starmer. You see, YouGov conducted a survey, and what they found is that 76% of the British public want an inquiry. Not only that, 65% of Labour voters, well, they want an inquiry too. So by Keir Starmer refusing to address this, putting in a three-line whip so that his MPs vote it down and calling it far-right rhetoric, well, he's alienated 65% of his own voting base. That simply isn't going to do. And that is the first crack that's beginning to form within the Labour Party spheres for Keir Starmer himself. This rejection of Keir Starmer is clearly spreading from Labour voters and the Labour base into MPs and mayors. Labour Mayor Andy Burnham and Labour MP Dan Carden, well, they've broken ranks with Keir Starmer to declare that, yes, we do in fact need a national inquiry. And this is clearly the first sign that we're starting to see of an internal political struggle. The smell of blood in the water, and the blood in fact is Keir Starmer's. Check this out. I read an article from the Daily Mail, yes, from the Daily Mail, which reports to have sources from inside the Labour Party, including Labour ministers. And let me read just one small quote from you, if I can avoid slipping on this ice. As another Labour minister remarked, before Christmas, no one could see how we could break out of the cycle of bad news, but people hoped the holidays would act as a political firebreak. Now they're saying, when is this run of bad headlines going to end? Now, if that's true, and they're not my sources, I have no way of verifying them, but if that's true and you have Labour ministers, MPs and mayors really for the first time beginning to question whether Keir Starmer is the right man to lead the party, we're probably nearing the end. And let's not forget Southport in all of this, because Axel Rudicabaner's trial begins in a week's time. And if you remember what Nigel Farage said at the time, he said, once the truth of this all comes out, British politics will never be the same. Now, at the time, I didn't understand what Nigel Farage meant by that, and quite frankly, I still don't. I guess we'll find out. But what I do know is this: Keir Starmer knew more about that event at the time it happened and shortly afterwards than he was willing to reveal to the British public. We know this because it took a month for him to be charged with any kind of terror offence, but Keir Starmer would have been briefed on that immediately. He just wasn't willing to release it to the public. Not only that, he politicised the jury, and the judiciary I should say, in a way that we have literally never seen before in this country. 24-hour courts, trials and people being sent to prison for social media posts. That, I have absolutely no doubt, will have made quite a few people in the left-wing liberal base of the Labour Party uncomfortable. There's another point to be considered here as well, which is America. America, of course, has always been our closest ally. But despite the fact that Elon Musk and Donald Trump both have ancestors who came from these isles and clearly show a great amount of interest and affection for the United Kingdom, they did not invite Keir Starmer to Donald Trump's inauguration. And the reason for this is very, very simple. You have people within Keir Starmer's cabinet, namely David Lammy, who have been very, very rude and offensive towards Donald Trump, saying that he's a racist KKK sympathiser and that if he comes to the UK, he'll go out marching and protesting against Donald Trump. brilliant. Not only that, the Labour Party, the governing party of Great Britain, sent activists all the way out to America to campaign against Donald Trump and for Kamala Harris. Think about how crazy that story is for a second. We have the governing party of Great Britain sending activists to campaign against someone who is now going to be the President of the United States. That really blows my mind. Now, we know how Donald Trump feels about loyalty, and he does not like disloyalty. My thoughts are this. Donald Trump is going to do everything he can to try and undermine Keir Starmer specifically, and the Labour Party, but Keir Starmer specifically. And I think in a way, he's probably using Elon Musk to do a little bit of that. And that's why we've seen these furious tweet parades against Keir Starmer, which quite frankly have been working.
We've got over 6,000 villages in the United Kingdom. And if you took the village idiot from every village, right, and put them 6,000 village idiots into Tottenham, David Lammy would still be the village idiot.
Okay, so we've looked at some of the cracks that are forming in Keir Starmer's government and his own position, but I don't think any of those things alone are quite enough to force him out of office. I think what's required is some kind of extreme pressure to turn those cracks into breaks. And what do I think that pressure is? Well, I think it's the economy. You see, at this point, I am probably 95% convinced that in the next couple of quarters, the UK is going to enter a fairly unpleasant recession. And that will be the pressure that turns the cracks into breaks. I don't have time to defend that position or that idea that we're going into recession in this video. I think my next video will be all about that, why I think that's going to happen. But for now, give me the benefit of the doubt and let me read you an article from the Times, or a small section of it, which might paint you a little picture of what's happening in the sort of Chancellery and the Treasury. Sources close to the Treasury say the Chancellor is very depressed that her reputation for prudence has been so quickly destroyed, and they claim she can't see a way out. One source said she's still got choices to make and she knows they're all shit. If that doesn't paint a pretty bleak picture of the UK economy for you, then I don't know what will. So what are Keir Starmer's next moves? Well, I think at this point he has quite limited options. And I say this because once a government or a person becomes so unpopular with the British public, it almost doesn't matter what they say. No message at all will resonate. And we saw this towards the end of the 14 years of Conservative government. It did not matter what Rishi Sunak did or said, nothing would resonate with the British public. You had lost their trust and their good faith. We're not quite there yet with the Labour Party, but I think we are getting there. And that's a very dangerous position to be in. So what of the limited options does he have left? Well, he has the option of a cabinet reshuffle, right? Which is a media distraction, throw something into the media, change a few things around and rebrand the Labour Party for a short period of time. This does make some sense because, well, Rachel Reeves is clearly failing as Chancellor, and quite frankly, David Lammy, how can he continue as Foreign Secretary when he's been so rude and disparaging to Donald Trump? I don't know. But there is a problem for Keir Starmer. You see, I suspect the mumblings and grumblings within the Labour Party, well, they would actually only get larger if he had a cabinet reshuffle. More and more people would start to dissent because what they would see is, well, this is a leader who can't even keep his people in cabinet for 6 months. It's a pretty dangerous position. Not only that, those cabinet ministers, well, some of them are quite senior figures within the Labour Party. They've been MPs for a very long time, and he would effectively then be turning them into enemies. Tricky. His other option, of course, is to resign, but I don't think he's quite there yet. I think what you need to see is, like I said, more external pressure, probably the economy, and then you start to see Labour voters talking critically about Keir Starmer, Labour MPs reflecting their constituents' views, being very critical of Keir Starmer, and then very, very quickly the dominoes topple, you get a leadership election. Now, leadership election, that is in itself a terrifying prospect because there is very little talent within the Labour Party. Actually, there's very little talent within any of our political parties as far as I'm concerned. I mean, just think about it. Who would you have that you know of from the Labour Party to replace Keir Starmer? It's pretty terrifying, isn't it, to think about? Now, I just want to make clear that I'm not saying Keir Starmer will be gone within 2 or 3 days. What I'm saying is that I don't think that he will be Prime Minister by the end of the year. And the reason I say this is because things like the economy going upside down, well, that will take time to come into fruition. But listen, Most of our economy, let's be honest, is based on financial services. We don't really make that much and we don't really export that much. We are leaders in some areas, we do some cool things in nuclear, but really not enough to sustain an entire country. A lot of it is financial services. But if you didn't know this, we are losing more millionaires than any other country except for China. Now, given that our economy is based entirely on, or mostly on, financial services, yeah, that doesn't bode well. And the recovery from that, well, what's the recovery going to be to? What industries are going to pick us up and out of the recession? I don't really know. Pretty scary thought. And of course, not all of that, in fact, is Keir Starmer's fault. That's something that's been going on for years and years and years. But the Labour Party have absolutely expedited and rapidised, that's not really a word, I don't think, this process. Let me know what you think. I am very, very humbled, especially by the last video, which now has over 200,000 views. I wasn't able to reply to all the comments, which you can probably forgive me for, there's too many of them, but I did reply to a few hundred. So please do leave a comment. I'll try and reply if I can, leave a like, and if you're not subscribed, please do so. Thank you very much.